The big church doors flew open with a loud bang. Everyone jumped. A man in a black suit walked in fast. He did not smile. He did not slow down. He looked straight at the bride and said one thing: "You are not marrying him." The whole room went silent. Nobody moved, nobody breathed, because the man walking down the aisle was Marcus Hale. He was rich. He was powerful. He thought money could buy anything, even her. But he did not know one thing. The quiet man standing at the altar waiting to marry her was not just a quiet man. He had a secret. And that secret was about to end Marcus Hale's whole life. Her name was Grace Bennett. She was 32 years old. She lived a quiet life now. But 3 years ago, her life was not quiet at all. 3 years ago, she belonged to Marcus Hale, not because she loved him, because she was scared of him. Marcus was a tech billionaire. He built a company called Halleck Systems. It made him one of the richest men in America. He had private jets. He had big houses. He had guards who followed him everywhere. When Grace met him, she thought she was lucky. He was charming. He gave her gifts. He told her she was special. But slowly, things changed. He started to control her phone. He started to control her friends. He started to control what she wore, what she said, and even what she thought. Grace was not his girlfriend anymore. She was his prisoner, and she knew it. It took Grace 1 year to plan her escape. She could not just leave. Marcus had eyes everywhere. He had guards. He had cameras. He had money to find anyone who ran from him, so Grace was smart. She saved small amounts of cash. She hid it in old books. She learned which guards took breaks and when. She waited for the perfect night. One rainy evening, when Marcus was away on business, Grace walked out the back door of his big house. She did not run. Running would look strange on camera. She walked slowly, like she was just going for a walk. Then she got in a taxi. Then she got on a plane. She flew far away, all the way to London, England. She changed her hair. She changed her name a little. She got a small, quiet job fixing old books in a museum. For the first time in 3 years, Grace could breathe. London was cold and rainy, but Grace loved it. Nobody knew her there. Nobody looked at her twice. She worked in a small room in the museum, fixing torn pages and old covers. She liked the quiet work. It made her feel calm. Every day was the same, and that was a good thing. She did not want excitement anymore. She just wanted peace. She made one friend at the museum, an older woman named Doris who worked in the front desk. Doris did not ask too many questions, and Grace liked that too. Slowly, Grace began to feel like a real person again, not Marcus Hale's prized possession. Just Grace. One afternoon, a man walked into the museum. He wore a simple brown jacket. He had kind eyes. He asked Grace for help finding an old book about castles. His name was Nathaniel. He was polite and a little shy. He came back the next week, and the week after that. Soon, he was coming every few days, always with a new question about old books. Grace began to look forward to his visits. He made her laugh, which was something she had not done in a long time. He never asked about her past. He never pushed her to talk. He was patient and kind and simple. Grace thought he was just a history teacher who loved old books. She had no idea who he really was. Weeks turned into months. Nathaniel and Grace started having tea after work, then dinner, then long walks by the river. He never rushed her. He never asked for anything. He just wanted to be near her. Grace found herself smiling more. She found herself trusting someone again, which she thought she could never do. One night under the streetlights, Nathaniel took her hand and said something simple. "I don't need to know your whole story to know you are safe with me." Grace cried that night, not from sadness, but from relief. For the first time since she ran away, she felt truly safe. 2 years after they met, Nathaniel took Grace to a quiet garden by the sea. The sky was orange and pink. He got down on one knee. He did not have a big speech. He just said, "I want to spend my life making you feel safe every single day." Grace said yes. She cried happy tears. She thought her new life was finally complete. She still did not know his secret. She still believed he was just a quiet man who loved old books and history. She had no idea that Nathaniel was not just Nathaniel. He was the Duke of Camwell, one of the most protected men in all of England. And he had been quietly building something else too, something Grace did not know about at all. While Grace thought Nathaniel spent his days reading old books, he was actually doing something else. Nathaniel worked closely with an international group that watched dangerous businessmen, men who broke the law using money and power, men who hurt people and never got caught because they were too rich to touch. One name kept coming up again and again in his work: Marcus Hale. Nathaniel did not know at first that Marcus Hale was connected to Grace. But slowly, piece by piece, he learned the truth. He learned about the control. He learned about the fear. He learned that the woman he loved had survived something terrible. And quietly, without telling her, Nathaniel decided to do something about it. He was not just going to protect Grace. He was going to make sure Marcus Hale could never hurt anyone again. For many months, Nathaniel worked in secret. He worked with lawyers. He worked with investigators. He worked with people in government who owed him favors. Slowly, they built a case against Marcus Hale. They found proof of stolen money. They found proof of illegal deals with dangerous countries. They found proof that Marcus had broken the law again and again and paid people to stay quiet about it. But Nathaniel had a problem. Marcus was too rich and too powerful to arrest quickly. If they moved too fast, Marcus would use his money to escape. So Nathaniel waited. He waited for the perfect moment. A moment when Marcus would not expect anything. A moment when Marcus would be too proud and too angry to run. The wedding day finally came. It was a beautiful morning. The church was filled with white flowers. Family and friends sat quietly in their seats. Grace walked down the aisle in a beautiful white dress, holding a bouquet of soft white roses. She looked at Nathaniel standing at the altar, and her heart felt full. She had no idea that today would be the most important day of her life for more than one reason. She had no idea that Marcus Hale had found her. She had no idea that this quiet wedding was about to become the moment everything changed forever. Just as the priest began to speak, the big church doors flew open with a loud bang. Everyone turned around. Marcus Hale walked in, dressed in an expensive black suit. His face was full of anger. He walked fast down the aisle past the shocked guests, straight toward Grace. "You are not marrying him," he said loudly. His voice echoed through the whole church. Grace froze. Her whole body went cold. For 3 years she had run from this man. For 3 years she had built a new life far away from him. And now, on her wedding day, he had found her again. Marcus stopped a few steps away from Grace. He looked at Nathaniel with a mean smile. "Do you even know who she is?" Marcus said. "She belongs to me. She always has. She just forgot for a little while." Grace's hands shook, but she found her voice. "I don't belong to anyone," she said, standing tall. "Not to you, not anymore." Marcus laughed, a cold laugh with no warmth in it. "You'll always be mine," he said. "No matter how far you run, no matter who you marry, I will always find you." The guests gasped. Some stood up in fear. Nobody knew what would happen next. Nathaniel did not shout. He did not raise his voice. He simply stepped down from the altar and stood calmly between Marcus and Grace. "You need to leave," Nathaniel said quietly. Marcus laughed again. "Do you know who I am?" Marcus said. "I could buy this whole church and everyone in it." Nathaniel looked at him with calm eyes. "I know exactly who you are," Nathaniel said softly. "I have known for a very long time." Something in his voice made Marcus stop laughing. For the first time, a small flicker of worry crossed his face. "I'm not just a history teacher," Nathaniel said, still calm. "My name is Nathaniel Ashworth. I am the Duke of Camwell." The whole church went silent. Grace turned to look at him, her mouth open in shock. She had no idea. Marcus's smile faded a little, but he tried to stay strong. "A duke," Marcus said, sneering. "That means nothing to me. Titles don't scare me." Nathaniel nodded slowly. "You're right," he said. "A title alone means nothing. What I've been doing for the past year might mean something to you." Nathaniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. 6 months ago," he said, "your company's private servers were quietly investigated. We found proof of stolen client money. We found proof of illegal deals with people your own government has banned you from working with. We found proof that you have been hiding all of this using shell companies overseas." Marcus's face went pale. "You're lying," he said, his voice shaking now. "Am I?" Nathaniel said calmly. "Because right now, as we speak, your company headquarters is being searched. Your accounts are being frozen. Your private jet has already been stopped at the airport." Marcus looked around at the church full of watching faces. His confidence was crumbling in front of everyone. Marcus's face turned red with anger. "You think a piece of paper can stop me?" he shouted. "I have lawyers, I have money, I have people everywhere." He took a step toward Grace, reaching for her arm. But before his hand could touch her, several men in dark suits stepped out from the shadows near the walls of the church. They had been there the whole time, quietly waiting, dressed like ordinary guests. They surrounded Marcus in seconds. Marcus froze, his eyes wide with shock. "Who are these people?" he said, his voice suddenly small. One of the men in dark suits stepped forward, holding out a badge. "Marcus Hale," he said, his voice firm and clear. "You are under arrest for fraud, illegal business deals, and endangering national security." Marcus's legs seemed to go weak. He looked at Nathaniel with wide, scared eyes. "You planned this," Marcus whispered. "You planned all of this." Nathaniel nodded slowly. "I had to," he said. Because the woman standing next to me deserves to feel safe every single day for the rest of her life, and you were never going to let that happen on your own. Grace stepped forward, standing tall next to Nathaniel. She looked at Marcus, the man who had controlled her for 3 long years, the man she had been so afraid of for so long. You made me feel small, Grace said, her voice steady. You made me feel like I had no choice, but I always had a choice, and today I choose myself. The guests in the church began to clap softly, then louder, until the whole room was filled with applause. Marcus stood frozen, surrounded by guards, as the sound of clapping filled his ears like a punishment all its own. The men in dark suits walked Marcus out of the church. He did not fight anymore. He did not shout anymore. His shoulders slumped. His face was pale and empty. As he walked past Grace one last time, he did not look at her. He could not. The guests watched in silence as he was placed into a car outside and driven away. The doors of the church closed quietly behind him. And just like that, the man who had controlled Grace's life for so many years was gone. The church was quiet for a moment. Everyone was still in shock. Grace turned to Nathaniel, tears filling her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked softly. Nathaniel took her hands gently. "I didn't want you to marry a title," he said. "I wanted you to marry me just as I am, and I didn't want you to spend the last few months living in fear, waiting for this day to come. I wanted to protect you until it was over." Grace looked into his eyes and saw nothing but love and honesty. She realized he had carried this heavy secret alone just so she could feel safe and happy for a little longer. Grace's parents rushed forward, hugging her tightly. Her mother cried happy tears. Her father shook Nathaniel's hand, a look of deep respect on his face. "You protected our daughter," he said. "We will never forget this." Nathaniel nodded humbly. "She protected herself first," he said. "I just made sure she never had to run again." The guests slowly began to talk among themselves, whispering in amazement about what they had just seen. A quiet history teacher was actually a duke, and he had just taken down one of the most powerful men in America, right there in the church. From the back of the church, Doris, Grace's friend from the museum, walked forward with a small smile. "I always knew there was something special about that man," Doris said, laughing softly through her tears. Grace laughed too, wiping her eyes. "You knew before I did," she said. Doris squeezed her hand. "Now finish your wedding, dear," she said. "You've earned this happy moment." The priest, who had been standing quietly to the side during everything, stepped forward again. He smiled gently at Grace and Nathaniel. "Shall we continue?" he asked softly. Grace nodded, smiling through her tears. The string quartet, who had stopped playing during the chaos, slowly picked up their instruments again. Soft music filled the church once more. Grace took Nathaniel's hands, and for the first time all day, she felt truly calm. Nathaniel looked into Grace's eyes and spoke his vows. "I promise to protect you, not because you are weak, but because you deserve peace. I promise to be patient, kind, and honest every single day. I promise that with me you will never have to run again." Grace's voice trembled with happiness as she spoke her own vows. "I promise to trust again because of you. I promise to build a life full of small, quiet joys. I promise to never forget that I chose this, and I choose you every single day." The priest smiled and said the words everyone was waiting for. "You may now kiss the bride." Nathaniel leaned in gently and kissed Grace softly. The whole church erupted in applause and cheers. Flowers were thrown into the air. Grace laughed through happy tears, feeling lighter than she had in years. The nightmare of Marcus Hale was finally behind her, and a new, safe chapter of her life was just beginning. Outside the church, a beautiful garden was set up for the reception. String lights hung between the trees. Soft music played as guests danced and laughed together. Grace sat with Nathaniel, holding his hand under the table, still smiling from the day's events. "I can't believe this is my life now," she whispered. Nathaniel smiled at her warmly. "Get used to it," he said softly, "because I plan to spend the rest of my life making sure you are always this happy." Later that evening, Grace stood alone for a moment, looking up at the stars. She thought about everything she had been through, the fear, the escape, the quiet years of hiding, and now this, a safe home. A kind husband, a future she never thought she would have. She placed a hand on her heart and whispered softly to herself, "I made it." Nathaniel walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around her gently. "Yes," he whispered, "you did." Weeks later, news spread that Marcus Hale had been formally charged with multiple serious crimes. His company was taken apart piece by piece. His money was frozen. His name, once feared and respected, became a symbol of shame. He would spend many years in prison, with no billions left to protect him. The man who once controlled Grace's every move now had no control over his own life at all. Grace and Nathaniel moved into a quiet home by the countryside. Grace still worked with old books, something she loved deeply. Nathaniel continued his quiet work protecting others from people like Marcus Hale. Every evening, they sat together by the fireplace, talking softly about their day. Grace often thought about how far she had come, from a scared woman hiding in a foreign country to a woman standing tall, loved, and finally truly free. As the sun set over their new home, Grace looked at Nathaniel and smiled. "Thank you for waiting for me," she said softly. "Thank you for trusting me," he replied. Together, they watched the sky turn orange and pink, just like the evening he had proposed to her. Grace finally understood that real love does not control you. Real love protects you and lets you be free. Grace Bennett once thought she would never be truly free. She thought fear would follow her forever. But she was wrong. With courage, patience, and the love of a good man, she built a new life, full of peace and happiness. And Marcus Hale, the man who once thought he owned her, learned the hard way that real power is not about money or control. It is about kindness, patience, and doing what is right. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and tell us in the comments what part of the story you loved the most. We read every single comment, and we will see you in the next video.